Welcome to the Heroin Chronicles. In episode 1 today I'm going to talk about the time I first used heroin. And strangely enough, the first time I used heroin, I didn't know it was heroin. It was just called gear. So I was a hairdresser. I left school at 15. I couldn't wait to get out of school, and I did a summer job sweeping the floor in a hairdresser's, and I was offered an apprenticeship, so my parents let me, and I started working in a hair salon, Peter Marks in Stillorgan. I would sweep the floor, wash hair, get tips, run for lunches for people, all that sort of thing. And then I took on the apprenticeship, didn't go back to school, and I worked as a hairdresser. And anyway, when I was about 18 years of age, I remember when I got to 18 thinking I wanted to go away, and I had saved a couple of £100, like literally 250 quid or something, back in 1981, and I'd saved this 250 quid, and I headed off with 3 other friends to Germany. And why Germany? I don't know. We just, let's go to Germany. And we went. We hitchhiked around, and it was the punk time. So we used to go to festivals, hang out there, meet up with other German punks and drink wine with them, hippies, and go to parties in farms out in the middle of nowhere in Germany, and hang out with some other young people, other young Germans, sometimes French and Spanish people we'd meet that would be travelling also, and we went all over Europe. And in all that time over there, no, I never came across heroin. Maybe I did, but I didn't recognise it at the time. But when I came back to Dublin about 8 months later, I got back to Dublin, and this big gang I used to hang around with in my area, it all kind of split up. See, a few of us had went away, and I suppose I took some of the core nucleus guys out of this gang of 20 or so of us that used to hang around, and the gang sort of separated and people started doing their own things. So when we came back to Dublin, 3 or 4 of my really close friends were taking gear on the weekends, and I didn't know what gear was, but I just noticed my friends seemed just a bit different. I just thought it might be way too long, things had changed a little. Come the weekends, I'd call around to my friend, and he'd, we're going to get a bit of gear. Do you want a bit of gear? I didn't even know what gear was. I said, okay, so I remember I gave him, I said, what do I do? He says, we all throw 5 quid in, so I threw 5 quid in, got 20 quid, there was 4 of us. 2 of the lads went down to Trees Gardens, 2 of us waited at the corner, and they came back with these little blue envelopes, little blue parcels, blue paper parcels, and in them was this little, very small little bit of brown powder. And I'd never seen it before. I'd never seen heroin. I didn't know anything about any of that. And the next thing I'm in the familiar setting of my best friend's mother's kitchen, and we're cooking this powder up on a spoon. And I remember the lads using vinegar to mix with it instead of water to break it up when they were cooking. I think then they added a little water to it as well, and put a filter on it, a bit of cotton from a cigarette, and sucked up this liquid. And I remember thinking at the time, where did they even get these needles? Like, I was just fascinated by it all. It was just so strange. But I had that, we were all curious and wild back then, and I wanted to see what was going on here, and what was this gear they were all talking about since I'd come home. And so we went into the shoulder, boom, 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 one after another, same needle into the shoulder. And so then we're sitting around, and the lads are all starting to scratch their faces and light up cigarettes and get, and I'm sitting there and I had no effect. They had no effect on me whatsoever. I remember thinking, I've been ripped off. Like they held back, or I was thinking, what's going on here? Or I just got a bogey. I don't know. But it's all from the one bag, so maybe I don't know. I'd come to know in using drugs down the line, sometimes you do that with friends. You think, oh, I don't want him to overdose, or so I better take a bit more. But it's all the greed of the addict, so maybe, I don't know, one of the guys shortchanged me. But anyway, the following week, I should say that night after we all got, the lads were all stoned, we walked into town. I was clear in the head, walking behind these guys and looking at them, stopping, watching their antics as they were getting sick, and they were thrown up and scratching, and it didn't look pretty, but they seemed to be having a great time. But it didn't look to me like but I knew these guys well, and they were just stoned, and I was kind of a little bit jealous that I wasn't getting anything out of mine. So the following week, the same situation. Let's go get a bit of gear, walk into town, go to McGonagall's, go to the coffee and go to somewhere that was open in town where we could hang out. The guys get a bit of gear again, and of course I'm not as scared this week because I kind of nearly know the process, but I'm hoping I get to see what's up. So I'm watching everything to make sure nobody shortchanges me. And they cook up the stuff and bum, 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 bum. Well, I got my hit and I sat down in the chair again. And within a couple of seconds, this total, what I call a wave came over me of euphoria and of comfort and of what I can only describe as almost like an alternate dimension. Just I was in a different space, a different place, and I just felt completely at ease in my body. My racing mind completely slowed down, and I started to just look at the world from this really quiet perspective. I felt good. I didn't feel anything other than fluid and lucid. But of course I was sitting there like that. I felt very harmonious and lucid, but I was just stuck to the chair. And I remember scratching my nose. And scratched, but feeling this sort of rather blissful euphoria came all over me. And I remember the guys wanting to go into town, and I was like, yeah, of course, let's go into town. Let's go to a concert, let's go to McGonagall's. Yeah, we all go to McGonagall's. And we got up, we were heading into town, and I think they were buzzing off me. I was buzzing so much, but I had fallen asleep on the sofa in my mother's room. We were in my house this week. My parents were away, and I had the lads around, and I remember I fell asleep on the couch 10 minutes after we had the hit, and I burned my finger with a cigarette, and I still have the scar behind this big ring of the first time I took heroin when I was 18 years of age. I'm 58 now. That's 40 years ago, and I'm only off for 2 years. That's what stopping, starting, and trying. Yeah, I just wanted it on record as part of the heroin chronicles. The first time I ever used heroin. And it goes. I hope to share much more of some of the sad, some of the funny, and some of the amazing adventures I've had over the years. Because I didn't just sit in Dublin using drugs. I travelled a lot, and I used when I travelled. When I worked as a hairdresser, and I've been in some amazing, bizarre situations and some wonderful situations. I spent time in Israel. I was in prison in Israel. Spent time in London. I did a little prison in London when I was 20. In fact, before I went back out to Europe, I was over in England. I got into some trouble over there because of drugs, and drugs were just a feature in my life right up until very recently. I guess they're still here because I'm talking about them, and then they'll always be here. But I don't take them anymore. I don't take any hard drugs, and I'm very pleased to have to be able to say that, because it's taken me this long to be at peace. I managed to stay off up to a year before, but I wasn't really at peace. And I have peace now, and it's come from, I suppose, my surrender. My peace came from my surrender, yeah. And I don't desire drugs anymore, but just as a matter of record, I'm doing these heroin chronicles. I'm telling my story. So until the next one, this is Pauly T. Stay blessed.